It's Saturday morning in Italy, and you're listening to the Magic Towns Italy podcast. Let's dive into this week's stories.
Welcome back, listeners, to the Magic Towns Italy podcast with Miles and Alessia. Today, we're diving headfirst into a dream so many share, finding and renovating that perfect sun-drenched home in Italy. But while the dream is lovely, the actual path, especially renovating property there, can be, well, quite an adventure. We're going to unpack the top 10 mistakes foreigners often make.
It's absolutely true. Of that appeal of Italian property, especially for expats, for retirees, it's undeniable. And the enthusiasm is wonderful, really. But you have to understand up front Italy's property laws, the bureaucracy,
Oh, the bureaucracy.
and the cultural nuances. It's intricate, a real labyrinth. Make sure that dream house doesn't, become a nightmare of paperwork.
Okay, that sets the stage perfectly. Let's dive into the very first mistake, one that catches people completely off guard, I think. You fall in love with, say, a charming stone building, an old barn, maybe. You picture your idyllic home. But here's mistake number one, not actually checking the building's official category. How often does that rustic charm hide a legal catch?
Far too often. It's fundamental in Italy. Every single building, even, an apartment in a block has a specific cadastral category, the land registry.
Cadastro, right.
And these categories, A, C, D, F, they define what the building legally is. For that lovely stone barn, it might be a C2. That's a warehouse, just for storage.
Not a house at all.
Not a house, or even trickier, an F2. Basically an unusable ruin. No taxable value. Certainly not registered as a dwelling.
Wow, so this isn't just like administrative detail, it's the core identity of the property.
Precisely. Foundational, it dictates permits, taxes, whether you can legally live there, period. Check the category before you commit.
Before signing anything.
Absolutely. It's like buying a car without knowing if it's registered as a car or, I don't know, a tractor. Completely changes what you could do with it.
That makes sense. And speaking of cost, that leads straight into mistake number two, underestimating oneri and related fees. These are the taxes you pay when building or doing major work. This is where the budget can really take a hit. You budget for the builder, the materials, but the town hall.
Yes, exactly. Foreign renovators are often genuinely shocked by these municipal fees, their development impact fees.
Yeah.
Contributions to the local municipality. Basically, you're paying because your project adds load to the public infrastructure. Roads, sewers, lighting.
So you're chipping in for the extra services your new place will use? Makes sense.
It does. And the idea is you contribute to their upkeep, maybe expansion.
Are there other fees like that?
Yes. It's basically a charge based on the value your renovation adds. The town gets a slice of the increased value, right? And here's a key point. If you convert something, say that C2 warehouse or a garage into a residential home,
It's like in mistake number one.
exactly, you often have to pay the difference between its old use and its new residential use.
And these aren't small amounts.
Definitely not minor. They can easily be thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of euros. It's a serious chunk of money. Many just don't factor in.
Okay, that's a huge heads up, which connects perfectly to mistake number three, ignoring the difference between renovating an A-class property and converting a C-class one. Is a renovation always just a renovation in Italy, legally speaking?
That's a really critical distinction, and it's often misunderstood. If you're renovating an existing A category home, fixing up a villa that's already legally a house, your fees can be quite low. Maybe just a few hundred euros.
Simpler permits, too.
Yes, especially if you're not changing the building's size or its use. But if you buy that charming C category stable or maybe a D category workshop, planning to make it your home, well, now you're doing a cambio di destinazione d'uso, a change of use.
Change of use. Oh,
And legally, that's treated much more like building something brand new.
so converting that barn isn't just a fix-up, it's like a new construction project in the eyes of the law with all the costs.
Pretty much, yes, it triggers the full range of permits. and crucially, the full whack of those zonery. And importantly, you'll have to bring the whole structure up to modern housing standards.
which could be stricter than for just renovating an existing house.
Often much stricter, minimum room sizes, energy performance rules, even things like mandatory parking spaces. So, my strongest advice here before you fall head over heels for that rustic barn,
Talk to an expert.
yes, consult a technical expert, an architect, an engineer about the feasibility, the real requirement, the costs of conversion. Honestly, sometimes a slightly rundown, even if it doesn't have that immediate rustic wow factor, can be a much simpler and significantly cheaper route to your Italian home.
That's incredibly practical advice. Okay, now let's talk about the team you'll need because mistake number 4 is not budgeting for the army of mandatory specialists. In lots of countries, you might hire a general contractor, maybe an architect, and that's it. Italy's different, isn't it?
Oh, completely different scale.
Yeah.
Italian law requires quite an impressive list of qualified professionals for almost any significant work. People constantly underestimate not just who they need, but the total cost of all these professional fees.
So who's on this mandatory list typically?
Okay, minimum, you'll need a licensed architect or engineer. They do the design, yes, but crucially, only they can officially file the plans with the commune, the local council. Then, for any real structural work, you need a structural engineer. They check static safety, make sure everything complies with Italy's very strict seismic rules.
Seismic, important.
Very important. Believe it or not, a geologist is mandatory if you're doing structural work or anything involving the ground. Then there's the Thermotechnico, the HVAC engineer. They prepare the energy performance project, making sure your heating, cooling, insulation meets current energy standards. If you have more than one contractor on site, which is common, you'll often need a dedicated SACI coordinator.
A lot of oversight.
It is. And don't forget a surveyor, a geometra for updating the cadastral records, accurate measurements, and often a tax advisor, especially for navigating the tax bonuses and payment rules.
That really is an army.
I like the analogy of a grand opera. You, the homeowner, you're the impresario, the producer, but you absolutely need the full cast, the architects, your conductor, the engineers or the orchestra sections.
And the geologist.
The geologist is making sure the stage doesn't collapse. Seriously, though, these professional fees aren't small change. They can easily add another 10, maybe 15% onto your total project cost.
That opera analogy really paints a picture. Okay. Let's switch gears to a major financial trap. Mistake number 5, do not buy a luxury status property, specifically categories A8 and A9. That sounds dramatic. A luxury property. What's the actual issue here?
Um, it is dramatic, but it's a very real financial pitfall. In Italy, certain cadastral categories are automatically classed as luxury. Foreign buyers sometimes fall for a grand old villa in the countryside.
Understandable.
Totally. But they don't realize the huge tax implications. The first hit comes right at purchase.
So straight away, you're paying much higher purchase taxes than a local might.
Exactly. A non-luxury first home might pay just 2% registration tax. But in A8 or A9, it's 9%. That's a massive difference, especially on a pricey property.
Wow, 2%, 9%.
And it continues. Your ongoing property taxes, the IMU, will be higher. Italy usually exempts primary homes from IMU,
But not luxury ones.
no exemption. And maybe the biggest kicker, often overlooked, renovation cost. You pay the full 22% VAT on renovation work
Instead
instead of the reduced 10% VAT rate that often applies to renovating non-luxury homes.
let's put numbers on that.
Simple example, a 500,000 euro renovation. At 22% VAT, that's 110,000 in tax. At 10%, it's 50,000. That's a 60,000 difference just in VAT.
That's incredible.
It adds up: higher purchase cost, higher running cost, and honestly, a tougher resale market because savvy Italians often avoid these categories specifically because of the tax burden.
Okay, lesson learned. Avoid buying an 8 or A9 if possible. But what if you accidentally create one? That's mistake number 6. How does that even happen?
Yeah, this is a sneaky one. It typically happens during the DOO CFA process.
It's DOO-CFA?
That's the official update you file with the catasto after the renovation is finished. Your architect or engineer submits the update in plans and specs. The catasto then looks at the changes, the final state of the property, and assigns its final category and value. And if you've added certain upscale features or significantly increased the size or just generally made it, well, too nice by their standards,
It can get bumped up into luxury status without you asking.
bumped into A1, A8, or A9, suddenly you're facing those higher taxes we just talked about.
What kind of things trigger this besides, installing solid gold taps?
Ha 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 ha. Well, maybe not gold taps, but a swimming pool over a certain size is a classic trigger. A private tennis court, even just the size of the property itself. There was a ruling that over 240 square meters of usable floor space could push a property into luxury territory.
Just sheer size.
Yes, even if it's just a large family home in your eyes. High-end finishes throughout, maybe a certain number of bathrooms per square meter, these things can contribute. The impact, again, is those higher taxes and a potentially smaller pool of buyers later. Discuss it up front with your team.
Crucial planning point. Okay, let's move on to permits. Mistake number 7, letting a renovation permit expire. We know bureaucracy can be slow, but are Italian permits really that strict on timing?
Oh, absolutely. Time sensitive is an understatement. Ignoring the deadlines can completely derail your project. Building permits, they aren't open ended. You generally must start the work within 1 year of the permit being issued.
1 year to start. Okay.
And then you must finish all the work within 3 years from that start date.
3 years to finish? What if you don't?
If you miss those deadlines and you haven't gotten a formal written extension before it expires, the permit just lapses. It becomes void for any work not yet completed.
So anything unfinished is suddenly illegal, unauthorized.
Essentially, yes. You've lost the permission for that part of the project. You then have to apply for a brand new permit. And here's the kicker: that new application is judged against the rules and zoning plans that are in force now, not when you got the original permit.
And rules can change.
Laws change, local zoning plans, piano regulatory get updated. You could find yourself unable to legally finish the project. You lose any acquired rights for the uncompleted part.
Wow, it's not like letting milk expire.
Letting a permit expire could mean thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, in wasted investment in a project you can't legally finish as planned. Apply for extensions before expiry with good reasons. Don't just set it and forget it.
Powerful warning. Now let's tackle that romantic image, the rustico. Mistake number 8, believing a rustico is already a house, or easily can be. That tumble-down farmhouse dream. What's the reality check here? The word rustico just means a rustic building. It sounds lovely, full of potential, but legally, it very often is not a house. It could be registered as, a simple storage shed at C2, maybe an animal shelter, or even that F2 collapsing ruin we mentioned.
So it probably lacks basic things.
And it almost definitely won't meet basic building codes for living in. Things like minimum ceiling heights, minimum window sizes for light and air, proper sanitation. If you just assume you can fix it up, you might buy something you can never legally live in as a home.
So it's not just renovation, it's a fundamental change of its legal status.
Precisely. Converting rustico properly means getting that change of use permit we talked about. It means bringing it up to all current building standards and paying those fees again.
And the local plan might not even allow it.
That too. Local plans might restrict or completely forbid turning agricultural buildings into homes in certain rural areas. I remember a case someone tried to get a tiny cellar, a cantina, legalized as a little dwelling. The health authority flatly refused. Not enough light, not enough air, not enough space. uninhabitable by law. So
The lesson.
due diligence is absolutely key. Check the current cadastral category, check the local conversion rules, factor in the potentially huge cost of bringing it up to code. Don't buy the dream without checking the legal reality.
A very important reality check indeed. Okay, related to that, mistake number 9, buying agricultural land and assuming you can build a house on it unless you're a farmer. So I find a stunning olive grove, cheap price. I can just put my dream villa right there, can't I?
Ah, if only it were that simple. That's a really common and often heartbreaking misconception. Agricultural land has incredibly strict rules about building houses on it. Only registered professional farmers can get permission.
Only farmers.
Usually, yes.
Yeah.
And even then, the house typically has to be directly linked to their farming activity. It can't just be a second home or a spec build. But the whole point of these rules is to stop rural sprawl, to keep those beautiful olive groves from being filled with villas.
Right? Preserving the landscape, that explains a lot. So, the key step before buying land,
Verification. Always get the Certificado de Destinazione Urbanistica, the CDU. That tells you the official zoning.
the CDU.
Get it before you buy. Don't rely on vague promises or what the seller thinks. Focus your dream house hunt on land already zoned for building or on existing properties.
Excellent advice. Okay, final mistake. Let's talk money one last time. Mistake number 10, not leveraging tax incentives correctly and ignoring record keeping. Italy does offer some pretty great tax breaks for renovations, the famous bonuses. But there's a catch with claiming them, right?
There absolutely is. Italy has offered and often still offers really significant incentives. They can save you a lot of money. However, to actually get these deductions or credits, you have to follow the rules to the absolute letter, especially the payment rules.
And the key payment rule is
The bonifico parlante, the speaking bank transfer.
speaking transfer. What makes it speak?
It has to include specific information right there in the payment description field when you make the transfer. You need your Italian tax code, the company's VAT number, and crucially, a specific reference to the law that grants the bonus you're claiming.
Wow, that's specific.
Absolutely, that's specific. Italian banks usually have a dedicated online form for these bonus payments. If you just pay cash or do a normal bank transfer without that exact wording,
You lose the bonus.
you forfeit the entire deduction, even if the work itself qualified perfectly. The payment method is non-negotiable for the tax authorities.
What about keeping records afterwards?
Meticulous record keeping is essential. You need to keep everything, every invoice, all the technical certifications related to the work for how long, for years. The tax office can audit you, sometimes 5, even 10 years later, and this isn't just about keeping the taxman happy now. Good records are vital for the future too. If you sell the property later, especially within 5 years, those documented renovation costs can significantly reduce your capital gains tax bill.
Ah, proving the value you added.
Exactly. Without proof, they might tax you on the full difference between what you paid and what you sold it for. Yeah.
So,
Keep every scrap of paper filed properly. Paperwork really is king in Italy.
that's crystal clear. After walking through these 10 key areas, it's obvious that renovating in Italy, while maybe complex, is definitely achievable and incredibly rewarding.
It absolutely is, and it shouldn't sound daunting. It is a journey through, yes, a maze of rules sometimes, but totally feasible with good planning. The key takeaway isn't just the rules themselves, but understanding that doing your homework up front in Italy isn't just advisable, it's your most critical tool.
Verify, budget, comply, leverage.
Exactly. Verify what you're buying, that category. Budget for everything, including the army specialists and those oneri. Stay compliant with permits and timelines. And leverage the system like those tax bonuses paid correctly. And when in doubt, ask the professionals. Don't rush. Take the time.
We really hope this deep dive has shed some useful light on this whole process. With the right knowledge, you really can avoid these common traps, and you can properly embrace la dolce vita in your beautiful restored Italian home. Definitely check out Magic Towns, Italy. They have amazing town level data profiles for over 1,500 places, even a magic AI assistant for your questions, all the resources to help make that Italian dream a reality.
That's it for this week on Magic Towns Italy. You can create a free account at magictowns.it and explore over 2,000 towns, including those offering the 7% tax scheme, as well as download dozens of expat guides. We have over 200 data points per town, more than Italy's Statistics Authority itself, covering everything from property prices to schools, healthcare, crime, and more. If you want full access to filters and unlimited searches, upgrade to Magic Towns Premium. Use the code podcast for 20% off an annual plan. Thanks for listening. Our next podcast will be live on Saturday at 9 a.m.